line of code or a unit test and you look at bigger pictures in software, particularly product design, who uses JetBrains stuff here? Right? Because we're awesome, right? Anyway, so we make products for other developers, these commercial products, and they need to be comfortable in it. You want to have a good user experience, and I know that other developers want to create the same kind of software. Not an IDE, but software that gives people a good feeling and has them repurchasing your software. If you're selling it commercially. If not, you want your coworkers to use your software and not be mad at you all of the time. So we'll take a look at applying principles of psychology. So it won't be at the line of code, it'll be for your software as a whole. And you'll also see how other developers are doing this to you, including something you may have heard of recently called dark patterns. Basically, shady shit out there on websites and apps that get people to purchase too much, like without drunk Amazon, right? Like that's bad enough purchasing, right? You drink a few, don't go to Amazon. But they get you when you're sober also, and they do it with psychological tricks, and people put this in software. So we already have this in the physical world, and I'll talk about that as well, and applying it to software. So we'll see also good stuff to do, not just the shady stuff. And we'll look at this from a light of thinking about software, product design, and critical thinking. So it is important to us. Why? If you care about quality of your code, at JetBrains, we do. We care about the quality of our product. We want people to be able to have a good development experience and to be able to write their best code. So we look at it from that angle. We want to solve products, build things better, right? This is the things we want to do, right? And this is how we apply psychology. We need to kind of look at ourselves, look at humans as a whole, and how this interacts when we build software and deliver it for other people. This will help us. It'll help improve your decision-making and make your products better. So we have to do this by looking at ourselves, spotting biases in ourselves, but also, as it's easy to spot biases in others, and crafting better arguments and honing our judgment. And we can do this through science. It's all about the science. There's two ways to do this. One is in our products. The other is you do have to work with the team, most of us. There's that person on the team. Maybe you're that person. That happens. So you can actually apply some of these principles to your team. Maybe help you get a raise or get that person to work with you a little better to work with the team. So you can put this in software, but you can also use this in a team dynamic to help, right? So it's like kind of a twofold approach to do this. And we'll start with critical thinking. So whenever I ask people, like, do you think critically? Everyone says, yes, of course I think critically. I'm a critical thinker. And then I say, well, great. Articulate. Tell me exactly how you do it. Can anyone just come up and say exactly how they do it? Because we kind of don't. We like to think we do, but we don't. Some people like any thinking I'm happy with, but some people, let alone critical thinking. But you have to think about thinking in order to help you think better. It's very thinkception, right? It's like that. So critical thinking is disciplined. You use evidence, right? Here's your formal, definitions of it. Analysis, objective, right? So we want to look at these things in this way. Disciplined thinking, we're actually not too bad at that as developers, right? When we approach problems. But things like, humans in general are not rational, and we often overlook evidence that is in front of our face. And the analysis part we often don't do very good at as humans. So we want to look and really sit and think about how software affects people. So some steps, right? Be the skeptic, but not like so skeptical that everything is no. No. You might know that person also. You might be that person. No. that's too much now, right? But there's a lot of times where you say, wait, let's stop and think about this. Let's stop and see how this feature really works. What can we do outside of simple A/B testing? Right? So we have to listen, and we have to do things like get into other people's shoes, the people who use your products. One way we do this is dog fooding. You gotta eat your own dog food. You gotta use your own products. And then of course testing with your users, acceptance testing, UI testing, all of those kind of testing. And we often have QA teams to help with that, so that's great. And we could do that by actually engaging in empathy. One great way to do that is actually reading fiction. Helps people get into the shoes of somebody else. So if you're already reading a lot of fiction, sci-fi, whatever, it's a good start. Right? That actually does help. You do need this is a hard one nowadays. If anyone's been to the US lately, reliable sources and facts does not live there anymore. You do have to question everything, but again, question it. You don't just knock it down. Think about it, question, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, and we'll dig into that. How this works. Here's a thing in psychology called heuristics. Other industries use this as well. And these are basically mental shortcuts. What happens is, as a human, we evolved basically to take shortcuts and run on autopilot all day. If we did not, while we were evolving, we would have got eaten by things, and we would not be here as a species. The species that did not simply go, whoa, and run away, they're done. Right? We're still here. So we take what are called mental shortcuts or heuristics. Right? And it is because of our evolutionary history that we have them. It helped us survive. But then we built this modern world with things like phones, this thing, right, everything in here. And none of this fits in with the way humans evolved. And what happens is folks come along, scammers in the real world, scammers in software, or even not scammers, but people just trying to get a little more money out of you, Amazon, Booking.com, right, all of these, they let you, or they goad you into buying more than you probably would have given another choice without leading you down a certain path. These are patterns. That's how we survived, but we've kind of imploded in on ourselves. We made ourselves so modern and comfortable that now some of this is an anti-pattern when it comes to our interactions. If you go to the decision lab, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff about this. These heuristics are where biases come from. When people think of the word bias, they usually think politics, left, right, but that is not actually a bias. Those are much different than a bias that I'm talking about here. People use that word, and bias can come into play, that's not what it is. Bias are these mental shortcuts that we take. And everyone does it, it's like breathing. And if you know how to hijack that, you actually can rip a lot of people off. I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying you can. You're able to. And people do. So we want to not let people hijack our heuristics. And when we present software, we want to make it so it works well and in a nice way with others' heuristics instead of ripping them off. Because I'm not allowed to tell you to rip them off. Don't do that. So we have to design for our balance ours and our customers. And here's why. That autopilot comes from the fact that you make a bottom of 35,000 up to 1 million and more decisions a day. Most of them are not conscious. You are on autopilot, and there's some of the science from it, and there's a bunch more in the How Customers Think PDF. Tons and tons of references to where they can find ways that you just run on these heuristics. Most of them you're not consciously making. And again, a lot of these are easy, like breathing and digestive. You don't make those decisions, your body does. Or, have you ever had somebody slam on the brakes in a car in front of you and you have to react quickly? That's a heuristic. It's an autopilot. If you don't slam on your brakes, you're smashing into them, right? So, and then you get that fear, like that pops up in you, right? And you're like, ah! and it really jolts you in the car. That's what that is. In that case, it is purely, or hopefully purely accidental, but in software we can invoke these kind of things in people, and we can in real life as well. So it would be impossible to function if we didn't if we all, every single human on Earth, me too, didn't do this. So most of it's harmless, but again, people can hijack it. Some of the things that they've done with, here's a bunch of experiments. People, they say, pick out your favorite candy. And people pick out, they say, I like this candy. And then they put you in a narrow hall, and you don't like your favorite candy anymore. Which is weird. That's just damn weird. Why? Because we're human, and that's how we roll. Because we are not rational in the subconscious. Right? We make decisions, but we make far more that we don't know about. And sometimes it's as simple as your environment causing these weird feelings that you don't even realize you have. Like picking the wrong candy. There's called the narrow hell candy. That's the actual name of the experiment. And they got people constantly picking the candy they don't like. It's so sad, because candy is so delicious. That's a good thing from, it's not too much. So again, what they immediately articulate, well, because we run on autopilot most of the time. So that's kind of what this is about. Right? And we all do it. Right? There's always someone who goes, my uncle does that. Yeah. Grandma does this. Not me. Yeah, it's called the bias blind spot. Right? And one of the things is telling people, like, we all 7 billion people on Earth have this bias. It will cause someone in their head to go, not me. Right? If you've done that, it just happened to you. Right? You think, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. People think bias bad. It's not. It's bias human. That's how we have to approach it. So, now that we kind of know what it is, it's a trend, an inclination, a feeling, right? You don't think about it, right? When you think about it, then it turns into a prejudice, which is a whole different thing. Fallacies are the error in thinking about the biases this way, right? So it's also not a fallacy, which is a whole different thing, but people do mix that up with biases, which is why I put it in. So we'll get to the good stuff. Let's spot some of this. Here's one. How things are presented to you, right, makes that more or less attractive. I can do the half full or the half empty. You might still drink it, but then when I go, no, it's piss, you're not touching it. I hope. Right, so it's called the framing effect. Some examples. Which one of these would you rather? Now, this does not work on 100% of the people, 100% of the time, but this effect works on most of the people, most of the time. Most of the people prefer 80% lean beef, as opposed to 15% fatty beef. It's the same damn beef. Same thing. But when they put these in the supermarket, guess which one goes bad because nobody buys it? Right? Same thing here. Here's, I don't want to even hear this word when I have an operation, right? Yeah, you have a 90% chance to say, yeah, I'm going to survive. 10%, what? You're going to kill me! Right? Or this one's another good one. This one gets people all the time 20% off of $600. Now, I'd rather 120 off. It's the same thing, but how it's, right? It's that framing, how things are framed. Now think about Amazon. How's it framed to you? Etsy, anywhere you buy something online. How about in an app, an upsell inside of an app? Right? How's that framed? Can I help you? No, go away, salesperson. But how can I help you? Oh, now I have to actually answer that. You can help me by going away. I don't really want you to. Or this is another favorite. We're the best team. There are only 5 teams. But how you frame it matters. So, 2 things. When you present things to your team, how are you going to frame it now? You want that raise? How are Very good at framing your accomplishments. Very good at frame things. Positive framing does a lot better for most people, most of the time, than negative framing. Right? You may have someone on your team that does a lot of negative framing, they're focusing on that side. If you see that person, try to pull them over to here because they won't convince other people, even though it may be the same thing. Right? They won't convince the boss. So how you frame really matters. The grocery store does this a lot too. The grocery store is a giant dark pattern. Also. Here's more of the same thing. Positive, negative, if you see it, oh, save 200 lives, or like, hey, this is just too much text. Wall of text. When you get to an app or a site and you see text, don't your eyes just go blah, 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 blah. Oh, here's a big font. Yeah, that's also, don't make people work for stuff. If you have to actually read and work, like, no, I don't want to do that. Let's do that. Right? You zip through, here's the thing I want. Same thing, right? A lot of text, but also negative or positive. Right? Positive does a lot better. Right? Here's the percentages. And this was the Tversky and Kahneman. They wrote a book. I have a link at the end. Awesome book to go and read, and it has a ton of this kind of stuff. Here's another. Have you purchased a car? Ever? And they have that sticker price on the car? It's on purpose, right? Because they're doing the anchor effect. Anywhere where you can negotiate price is an anchor effect. Anytime you get an offer for a job and you get that first salary that they offer, it's the framing effect. HR knows this. Sales know this. Now you know it too. So when you go for that next job and you go, I want this much money, add more. Anchor it high and make them come down. Right? You want that raise? Anchor it high. If you don't, they'll anchor it low. Right? We've probably experienced this before in job hunting. Pricing at the cart. They do that with that they call it the MSRP in the US. But it's to anchor you to a price. That's the price, and oh, we can't really bring it down. It costs so much for us, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They're lying. Search results do this too, and reviews, right? First thing you see, right? So that's one. So how you frame it and anchor it makes a difference for your team, and also when you present to users. There's this book written by Robert Cialdini called The Principles of Persuasion in Psychology. It is a keystone book in that field. And this is us. This is the heuristics. We are this little toy. And he describes it as click word. We're the little toy, and with these heuristics, people hijack it and they go click, and we just go woo! And we just do the thing. It's autopilot. We survived by doing that. The lying grounds just out of there. Right? We don't stick around. Click word. So it's that way of hijacking those heuristics. And we don't want people to hijack ours. And we want to protect ourselves, and we want to present data in an appropriate way as to not negatively do that to others. Pickpockets know this. Do you know where the most pickpockets happen? Anyone get their pockets picked ever? The most, you might not have had it happen at this location, or you might not have noticed. It's under the sign that says, beware of the pickpockets. Any given train station, airport, mall, whatever, you'll see a sign that says, beware of the pickpockets. Pickpockets hang out there. Because you know what people do? They see the sign, and they go, oh, right? And they touch their wallet, right? I got my wallet here, I got my phone here, got something here, right? They don't actually say that, nobody says that, but people do this, they look at the sign doing this, and the pickpocket's like, yeah, you told me where your goods are. Because that sign, the sign is not trying to do that. They're trying to have the opposite effect, but they didn't know the psychology. These signs go up, people inadvertently go, click, and the pickpocket gets them. Even though I told you this, you may see a sign and the urge may be so strong to protect your stuff that you'll still do it. That's how these heuristic works. It's because we're human, right? A thing called, if you've heard of this thing called confirm shaming on the internet, this is an example. One of my friends was enraged and she says, I went to buy some things and this website popped up a little box and it said subscribe to our newsletter, and then under it was a small link, oh, subscribe to our newsletter and get 20% off. Yeah, I kind of want 20% off, but your stupid spam, I don't want it, right? Because who does? And then under it says, click here if you don't like to save 20%. But I'm a person who likes to save money, right? So it's an affront to your identity. I'm a money-saving person. I'm not somebody who just throws away money. I want to save that. Oh, what do I click? And it actually causes some strife in people. Now again, not everybody all of the time, but enough people that you see these things happening quite a bit online. That's a dark pattern in that case. And this is what they called before the digital age. You know, when we used to actually go into stores and buy stuff before Amazon? Yeah, we still do. Choice architecture is what they've been calling it in supermarkets for decades. And the casinos kind of call it that. It's a casino, it's not really. And also now it's called dark patterns, right? Choice architecture, or I've heard it called architecture of control, right? Trying to control people by architecting the environment with psychology. So here's what happens. There's a thing called the Gruen effect. Have you ever gone into a mall, a casino, or a place, and you walk in and you're like, oh, that blinky lights, smells, stuff, it's overwhelming in many places. It's on purpose. Yeah, this is everywhere. The grocery store, and I had the nice fortune to work in this part of the industry early in my career at people who make some of these chips and snacks in the USA. And I worked for a couple of different food manufacturers. And I had to learn things like, at the grocery store, you have to pay. If I make potato chips like Doritos, they have to pay to get at eye level, adult eye level. The stuff that adults like. And the kids, right, the sugary cereal and snacks at the kids' eye level. And that's on purpose, and they pay good money to put their products at specific locations, so you don't even, making it easy, so you don't even have to move your eyeballs, right? They want to make it that easy for you. It's called choice architecture. You probably know about the impulse items at the cashier, right? Because that's definitely to get little kids to go, Mommy, candy bar, Mommy, candy bar, Mommy. That's what they do. You might notice bigger carts over the years, or at least in the US. Literally everything gets bigger over the years. Fresh, crisp produce in front. Smells of baked bread and the baked fresh goods. Oh, it's natural. It's fresh in here. This is great. But I also need toilet paper, and they make you walk all the way in the back for the essentials like toilet paper. And remember, there were 2 years that we had a hell of a time getting toilet paper. Like, you're ready to kill somebody for that toilet paper, right? And they make you go in the back, so you have to walk past the snacks, walk past convenience goods, walk past all the things at the end that are, enticing you in another way. Oh, the ends of the aisles are prime. They pay big money for that. Sensory plays, the pricing, 99 cents, it's been around forever. That's why, because it seems, even though you don't actually physically think like 99 cents is less than $1. We don't think like, most people don't think like that, but subconsciously it's less, right? And that's why somebody figured that out a long time ago, decades. And that's where that came from. Now everyone does it just because somebody copied, and copied, right? And that's what happens this week here. And, at the conference, you'll go and you'll get swag. That's why you have swag, is stuff like this. If you give, there's a principle from that book, The Click Word Guy, and it's called the principle of reciprocity. If I give you a gift, no matter how trivial or inexpensive, like a pencil, it invokes a feeling reciprocity. You feel like you need to do something in return. And that's why you have branded items from most companies like JetBrains. Now, we don't do this on purpose. The conference didn't. It's just a thing people do, but that is where it came from. And some actually do still do these things on purpose in the way that they present framing effect, and the other effects with their swag. So sometimes it's just swag that's copied because other companies do it, but sometimes it's this kind of stuff. More things, right? Amazon. Amazon's choice. Nice? What is that exactly? I don't know, but Amazon said it's good. Stamp of approval. The authority principle from Robert Cialdini's book. People believe it to be better quality, the thing you should get, and choose over the other things because there's an authoritative stamp of approval. It's Amazon. What the hell authority are they on a TV? They're not. They want to sell any of them, right? But they stamp something and go, here you go. Right? So that's something they do. Another thing they do is, you're used to this, right? We want you to click this. We're going to make this much more prominent than this. Right? Obviously, that one's an easy one. All of this ties in with what's called cognitive fluency. Like I said, at the store, your eyeball level, they don't even want you to have to move your eyeballs. You could be that lazy while you're in the snack aisle. And that's part of cognitive fluency. Is it easy? Make it easy. Right? As someone who makes developer tools, we have to make it easier for people. Or why wouldn't you just stick with Visual Studio? Right? So it's easy. Yeah, we're cool. Right? So make it easy for people. Here's one they found out. Anybody here cook? All right, you go to any recipe online anymore, and it is like the person's life story, how they found this, and grandma showed it to them. By the way, here's her life story. And then, you're scrolling for 10 minutes, and oh, here's the recipe. I don't care. I'm sorry, no offense. I don't care about your grandma. I just want the recipe. So they found out what happens is, if you take these big walls of text, recipes, and you just turn them into a simple 2-minute video, it's 15 minutes of this life story recipe. Turn it into a 2-minute video where people could just sit there and literally not have to move their eyeballs. Cognitive fluency. It's good, we're good, I can do the pancakes now. They actually did this with these pancakes, this recipe on that site, the Bluebell Recipes site. And they did a little A/B testing and found out, no, people don't want to know the life story of the person who made the pancakes. They just want to make the pancakes. So here's a video, 2 minutes, you're done. You can fast forward. It's much easier, right? So that's something to do. So clear, easy to read information. Not only does it flow better, but it actually makes people feel like it's truer. They're not sitting there thinking, I think this is truer because this is easier to look at. Nobody does that. But subconsciously, your body's going, oh yeah, this is easy. I like it, it's true. Rhymes make things feel true, right? They're sublime. In the US, they ran this campaign when we decided, seatbelts must happen. We want to make it a law. And then, Americans are like, laws? Freedom, you're not going to make me wear the seatbelt. We do this every time a new law comes out. They ban smoking in public places. What? Freedom? Same thing. It's America. Click it or ticket was a national campaign. So put your seatbelt on. And then they found out, oh, it wasn't just about getting people to obey the speeding laws and the traffic laws, but it actually saved lives. And that was unintentional. Not that they didn't want to save lives, but their goal was to get people to obey the law. And it was from the click it or ticket. It's a rhyme. It feels true. It feels better. Appel, you may have heard this one in English. It's actually not true. But a lot of people kind of swear by this kind of thing, right? Fake it till you make it. So if you rhyme when you present things, right? Have an alliteration, a rhyme or a flow. Make it easy. Do the framing, right? Pretty soon, you've got someone really listening to you. In person or in the digital world. Okay? Use plain language. This is disturbing. Right? Pregnant smokers, ex-smokers as well, who received science-sounding materials kept smoking. The ones that got basically third-grade level materials were like, oh, smoking's bad. We will maybe not do that while we're pregnant. Like, right? That's disturbing that they had to do this third-grade reading level, right? So, yeah, how you make it easy for people is important. Also easy to pronounce. Alright, so stocks that have catchier symbols actually do better. Or people with legal firms' names, a lot of people change. How many actors change their names to something? Right, that's easier. You can't do things about your name. A lot of places you can't just go changing your name easily. So it's unfortunate, but just know that this happens when you're being presented something. Campaigns do this. They make easy, catchy names, catchy slogans, ones that rhyme and roll off the tongue. It goes across a lot better. When you do A/B testing, here's another way to think about presenting data. West's Furniture in the US ran A/B testing, and they said, like, look, hey, we want you to look through our catalog, testers, and tell us, if you were to furnish your home in a retro kind of antique-y style, what would you do? And they picked this lamp. Then they ran the B test and said, okay, shoppers, what would you do if we asked you to refurnish your home in a modern style? And they showed them this lamp, and they picked that lamp. Because we conflate space and distance and time. So now this is people who read left to right. It's the opposite for right to left. So I'll just stick with the left to right here. So on the left is the past, the right is the future. You're not consciously thinking about this, it's just how it registers in your subconscious. And that's how people pick the same lamp. It's both modern and it's like Schrödinger's lamp. It's both modern and ancient. At the same time, we don't know until you run the A/B test and open the box. So there's a little note about that. And you can actually look up West's A/B testing, and they show you all about this lamp and some of the testing they did. It was great. So on an actual website. Another one, be the first. It's not just for winning the race, but most people, we probably all know, most people don't go past the first page of Google. Sometimes I wonder if there is past the first page of Google. But so you look for something, and so people just take the first thing at the list as the authoritative word of their deity. But look at what Google's doing. They aren't just linking to sites anymore. They're scraping content that they choose and are presenting it here. So what if they just decide one day to start pushing propaganda or weird stuff in here, or things that are against your principles or whatever, right? They could. And a lot of people, you just see it here, it's the first, it's on the front. It's easy, cognitive fluency, it's framed, it's primed, it's got all of this going. And people do not leave that first page of Google. So Google's doing this to us too. Anyone feeling paranoid yet? Sorry, I am. Here's one, another America. There is a place called A&W, Root Beer and Food, in the US. They're a delightful little place to eat, little fast food. And you know, we got McDonald's and Burger King. And we do not like the metric system. We will do anything to avoid the metric system. So what happens is, at one time A&W said, we're gonna get the quarter pounder people, right? Burger King. And what we'll do, we will come out with a third pounder for the same price, right? Because their burgers are actually better, they're actual food for starters. And they're like a third pounder. People will love this. Better food, bigger food, same price. Now this sounds really American, better, bigger, same price, except that Americans threw them for a loop and we went, what? 1/3? 1/4? Clearly 4 is bigger than 3. Are you out of your mind, A&W? Why would I pay for that? It's less food. I'm not kidding. Don't look at me like that. We did that. I'm sorry. I apologize for the whole country. Also, can we just use the metric system? We wouldn't have them. That's a whole different thing. And they did this. And then A&W just went, what just happened? they were confounded. They were sure they had a good competition here, and then all of a sudden they were like, how we so underestimated people. Yeah, Erica. I live in Germany, by the way. I moved over there a while back. Came over here from Berlin. So, stories. Fun stories about fun stories. If you go to significantobjects.com, you will find very insignificant objects. And what happens here is this dude finds random weird shit is the only way I could describe this. Just little trinkets, like this chicken, that's cute, whatever it is. Random weird hot dog, okay. Is it a third pound or a quarter? And what they do is they'll purchase this for maybe 50 cents or some ridiculously small amount, and they resell it. For this one, it was $2. Final price, $32. What? I know. You're like, hey, I'm in the wrong business. How do you do this? Because what they did was they crafted a story. The story doesn't have to be true, doesn't have to be real, just a cool, compelling story, or crazy, or weird, or funny. And people are like, story, that's how we have handed down information while we were evolving until we got paper, computers, etc., to be able to write down. Before we had writing systems, it was all verbal, and we are storytelling, pattern recognizing machines with these heuristics. And they said, we're going to tell a story. They're actually what you're buying is the story for an exorbitant price and a weird little trinket. And somebody actually made a business out of this. These significant objects. So it's all about how you present stuff. Now, this is not doing anything shady. It's just fun. Like, people should know that they're stories, but still, that's how it works. Right? So stories get our point across. So remember this again. Like, combine this with the other principles when you're talking to your boss, right? Craft a story. I'm not saying lie like they're just making stuff up here, but craft a story around what you're presenting. Here's some more UI stuff. When people look at these wines, it's the same wine, I promise. Same exact description, same everything. Except if you present it with the price a little bit bigger versus smaller, what do you think people think is cheaper? You're right. It just gets worse. And this is Amazon does this, right? They do this, and this. This being further away, looks like it was a lot more money than this. Oh yeah, this is much closer in price, like literally closer in price on the screen, but it is the same. And these are tiny little things, and they have a big effect when it comes to revenue. Okay. Here's another one. I use this one. There's science on how the shape of your glass, plates, etc., but we'll focus on glasses, affects your alcohol consumption. Smooth glasses go down a lot easier than whiskey glasses. My sister drinks a bit much, so she gets this glass. I'm kidding. It's a lot better on the holidays. Do this. You got that, Uncle? Do this. It'll help. Plates, right? Bigger plates. People fill them up more. They did an experiment with soup, and they had a bowl of soup, and they made it a bottomless bowl where they can like feed soup up from under the table, and people just kept eating, not even realizing they were just getting more soup. You may have had that jokester friend who kept like refilling your drink. When you drink, you'd look away and they refilled it, and you're like, oh wow, you can keep drinking. Same thing. With all of this, keep repeating it. I mean, we like dry code, don't repeat yourself principle, but in the rest of it, the more you see it, the more you like it. You ever have that person and they show up and you're like, but they keep showing up and they keep showing up, and then pretty soon you're like, not so bad. Right? And after a while, they kind of grow on you, and you're like, oh, yeah, actually, we hang out and shit. Like, it's this. Your exposure effect. So keep presenting it, keep it. The more you see it, the more you like it. And then if it's framed, right, and all these other principles, combine them all, and keep doing it. That's what they do. So it's hijacking that behavior. This is my absolute favorite, because I worked at a place like this. So you may have worked at a place where, they just put a little box of snacks out and a cup, and they say just throw in €1 and grab a snack. It's honor system, right? We're supposedly all adults here. I've been called worse, but a little snack box. We used to have these in the US with a little thing, you'd actually put your money in there. And what happens is most people do not intend to get a snack, but they're maybe going across the office or going to the toilet, and they go, oh, yeah, chips. I'll grab, all right, I'll bring back my euro in an hour when I come back. And they mean to, and then they just take the snack and forget, because it's just a little snack. Now, of course, there are people who are like, yep. I mean, that happens. But this phenomenon of somebody going, I will come back later, happens so much that roughly 80 to 85% of the people do this. And it ends up with like $1 in the snack box and no way to buy more snacks, right? For the company, they have to just do it out of pocket. So what some researchers did is they said, what can we do, with this? How can we have fun with this? And they took a magazine, cut out a picture of eyes and put it behind there in the snack room. And then now people are like, I'm definitely, you see me, I'm putting the money in, not purposefully thinking that. It's hijacking your heuristics, right? Although in software, I'm not sure you can put eyes everywhere. But we might have a plugin for eyes that look at your code or something. I'm sure somebody's done that. We have cool plugins. So, but I love this one out there. Here's another one. During World War II, bombers were sent out. Some came back, some did not. The ones that came back looked like this. This has been going around the internet recently. You may have seen them. Some came back like this, and they said, here are the strikes. So, when the planes come back, where should we fortify them? And everyone went, oh, where the red dots are. Stop. Think. These are the ones that came back. Don't you want to fortify the ones that didn't? Which would be... there. Right? The ones without the dots are the ones that actually went down. The ones with the dots were managed to come back. So sometimes you have to actually stop, do the empathy, think outside, and how somebody else, right? How it might be working for someone else or a different situation. That's called survivor bias. Right? So you have to actually sometimes stop and try to see if there's another side or a wall, right? So the wall would be like, immediately you think, well, it got shot where the red dots are, that's where to go. But we have to stop and say, is that really true? No, or it wouldn't have come back. Right? So that's good. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Right? Survivor bias. Nice article on Medium somebody wrote about that. So what do you do? How do you apply this? Well, we're getting ideas, aren't we? So things you can do. Now this is only a small sampling of these heuristics and biases. This goes on. This is very deep that you can get into this. But I think we get the idea of how software is presented to us, how we present it to others, and how we interact with our team. So things to do is go out and just learn about these heuristics and biases. Right? See how, if you actually look for this in software development, you'll see examples where people have applied it to teams and to their products. So it's all about that overall physical design. You might even want to designate someone to go and do some of the testing, A/B testing or other testing around this. So keep digging read a couple of books such as Thinking Fast and Slow was one of the, it has a lot of science. They did a ton of experiments on this. Nudge is great. It's how these tiny little things influence people. Also, Dark Patterns website is the shady stuff, right? It goes into casinos, and one's actually trying to rip you off. They all use all of these and more of these techniques. So, a lot of Design of Everyday Items, I forgot the link, but that's a good book. It talks about physical stuff, but it's really good and applicable to the digital world as well. So these are all really, really good resources to get in there and start reading. And of course, Robert Cialdini's, did I not put it on here? Just look for the 7 Principles of Persuasion. That's a good one as well. So there's some of the resources. So thank you, and try not to be too paranoid. Yes, so there are prizes in the bags.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Let me give you a pen.
No, I won't settle for a pen. Anyways, I loved your talk. I'm a technical writer, so telling stories and writing clearly is something that speaks to me. I have a question that is lazy, but I'm also genuinely interested. You were talking about reading fiction for
Yes.
more empathy.
Yes.
Can you recommend a great piece of fiction you read recently?
Oh, there's so many good books of fiction. Okay, I kind of like zombie books and movies. So, what was it called? The End of Everything. It was just a fun guilty pleasure for me. Zombie stuff like The Walking Dead. I love this stuff. But that was a good one. I thought the Outlander series was good. That was another good one. Let's see. Books. What did I read? I have to look in my book thing. I have a lot of recommendations for books, but then when you ask me to actually list them, it's a little bit different. Let's see. Yeah, The End of Everything was a good book. Let's see. Fairy Tale by Stephen King was kind of good too. That's a recent one. And I did a couple of H.P. Lovecraft books. That's sci-fi. So it's classic U.S. sci-fi. They're good too. I like the classic U.S. sci-fi too. They're really good. So. But yeah, identifying with the protagonist or even the villains. So I think to a certain degree also watching film does, because we do empathize with characters. So, and as somebody who's recently watching Better Call Saul, I thought their character development was really interesting in the way that you can relate, and you would kind of start liking characters, and you're like, oh, they did a thing, So that I think sometimes watching film also helps, but reading even more, because you have to more mentally construct things than TV. TV is a little easier. So,
No,
not yet.
Keep on.
Okay.
Thanks for the talk. So I have simply one question. So we had a few examples from Amazon site. Could you please share with us information? How does JetBrains use these framing methods? And give us maybe a few of the most interesting examples from your point of view. Thanks.
Yeah, so we don't have we do have people who have degrees in psychology, but they don't sit down and say, we're applying these principles in the way I presented them here. But what we do is, and we make IDEs, which is a little harder to do things like sneaking in a dark pattern. We also don't want to do that. So the first thing is that we care about quality, and that the fact that we know these things happen. So we do a lot of A/B testing, and we run what's called an early access program, in which we collect hardcore feedback from people during a certain period that runs up to release. And during that, if there's any friction that people report, we actually sit with people and go through it. And I will actually ask them things like, how did you feel as you were doing this? Was it easy? Literally, did we maybe hurt? Because sometimes people's hands actually hurt from keystrokes or, repetitive actions. That's a actual industry hazard for us. So we ask those kind of questions. So we don't go, are you applying the principle, this heuristic? But we do these other kind of testing. So we do have a lot of user acceptance, QA, and all of that kind of stuff. I can't think of any specific examples of this recently, but that's the kind of stuff
I guess I could help you. An example.
Oh, sure.
I'm not just JetBrains employee, but from information from your pricing page. For example, IDE Ultimate,
Yes.
the pricing per user first year, 599 euros. So I guess a quite good example from a 99% pricing.
Yep.
strategy. Thanks.
Yep. We do too. I mean, that's the thing. If somebody says like 600 euros, then people go, what? That's weird, like nowadays. But yeah, it's the same thing. It feels a little cheaper, doesn't it? Okay.
Hello, thanks for the great talk.
Thank you.
So, I have one question, right? The heuristics that you were talking about are general patterns of behavior for every human. So some patterns may be beneficial for kind of even users good. Where do you draw the line between what you consider really a dark pattern versus like a regular improvement of product
Yeah.
that will improve clients' lives?
Sometimes it's a thin line. So one way to tell is if you are going through software and you feel coerced, or if you ever go into software and you kind of get trapped, and you can't get out, or try to cancel your Amazon Prime. See if you could.
Yeah,
it's
that
hard,
would be quite hard.
right? That they actually made that purposefully difficult for people to find it, and people had to make training videos to show people how to cancel it. I mean, come on, that. So anytime that software removes choice, tries to force you to do something, or like the confirm shaming, where you see something pops up and it feels sketchy or icky, it probably is, right? So unless you have like a nice, easy time navigating through stuff, if they're doing some of these dark patterns, it will usually invoke one of these feelings, and you'll start to feel trapped, or you actually can't. You try to back up, and you can't find the back button. EasyJet's done this, where they try to shove like car rentals and a scooter rental and hotels, and I'm like, I don't want this. How can I move forward with purchasing the plane ticket or backward? And you can't find it. Stuff like that. So if you're having a hard time even finding the next or the back button, those are the kind of things, some good things to look for.
Right, thank you.
Hi, thanks very much for presentation. As I need to confess, I'm a project manager, so I'm not using IDs, but I'm using those management tools. So when I came to one company, and then we're running on Utrecht, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of bugs in Utrecht, and I proposed to switch to Atlassian because it's industry standard and so on. But the guys and gals, they told me, there is a person in Utrecht support who promised me to fix this bug. I cannot refuse this product because this guy, and there is stated from each office and from which country, he said, it is a very important bug, we're gonna fix it. The bug was like several years in the backlog. Nobody fixed it. But my own team, they cannot refuse that because I have a promise from a real person, I cannot refuse. And this is just great. I mean, this is addictive.
Yes.
They have a connection between two real people.
Right.
And I have to fight to apply Atlassian there. So I just applaud to JetBrains on that. It's nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.